Well, I'm sure it must be 1 o'clock somewhere, so we'll call the meeting to order. Councillor John, would you read the land acknowledgement, please?
Sure, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to see you all here. It's so nice to have people in here today. As we gather, we recognize and acknowledge the traditional keepers of this land with whom we share today. The Township of Southgate is part of the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe, Six Nation of the Grand River, Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, Haudenosaunee, and Saugeen Métis. The land that surrounds us is part of who we are as it reflects our histories. May we live in peace and friendship with all its diverse people. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone registered for open forum today?
Yes, we do. First on our list is Pam Burgess. She's participating online.
Good morning, Pam.
Morning, how are you?
Good afternoon, I guess it is. Sorry, my mistake. Good afternoon. Good to see you. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members of council. My name is Pam Burgess, and my family and I have been grateful residents of Dundalk here in Southgate for the past 6 years. With all that is going on with regards to the tariffs and watching people checking their labels on their grocery items to find or not US items to purchase, I feel that the people of Southgate need something positive in their daily lives. People are anxious, overwhelmed, and concerned with what the economy will bring. Many are struggling to stay afloat. Yet wonderfully, in Southgate and across Canada, we feel a satisfying sense that we're all in this together. When I moved to Dundalk 6 years ago, and Main Street was flying the Canadian flags on the light standards on July 1st, it made me feel proud to be a Canadian and part of the Southgate community. These flags meant so much to me then and mean even more to all of us now. I would like to propose that Southgate put the Canadian flags back up on Main Street as soon as possible. I understand that this would involve extra costs that are not budgeted for, but I am confident that the positive reaction from the community will outweigh the additional costs. It will also encourage bonding amongst us in the same way that visible municipal leadership helped us to bond through 2 world wars and the Great Depression. Members of council, please restore Dundalk's Main Street flags to remind us each day that what we were going through and we're going through this together, and to encourage us to shop local and national and to look after each other. Restoring the flags will be a historic act, long remembered and cherished by those who live here, particularly the children. And those of you also ensure that at least one municipally sponsored Canadian flag flies from a light standard in each of the other villages and hamlets in Southgate. In these trying times, I think Canada Day should start today, as you, as our elected leaders, can help make this happen by restoring the flags throughout Southgate. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. I appreciate you taking the time to offer us your kind words. And I know there are some discussions ongoing about how we could do or recognize what you're looking for. So thank you very much, and we will consider your request. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else, Madam Clerk?
Yeah, Ben Curcio, if you want to speak, just come up to the mic there.
Good afternoon, sir. Please use the microphone there, please, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you.
Thank you. I received this letter on the 14th of March, and probably I didn't read it till about 4 or 5 days later. I don't, and I'd see I was invited to come over. It's beside my property near the Spot Restaurant. If I'm understanding right, I don't read the map. If somebody told me it's around my property on Highway 6. Now, I don't know what's going on And I sure like to know what he's doing, what kind of business is going in. It doesn't tell me. So number one, I'm not here to cause anybody any hard feelings, you know. So I don't know what's going on. Whether who bought it, whether it's the yellow house, I don't see a picture where it's going. I don't see a picture of whether it's that yellow house or whether because she died, she was 103 beside me. Now, whether I understand that land has only got 3 acres, and we own right from the spot right over to the fence, and that goes right back to Bellinger, about 1.5 miles long. Now, I like to know what's going on to protect my rights.
I can tell you, sir, I believe the property you're inquiring about is the old or the former John Deere property just north of Mount Forest, the John Deere dealership,
It's John Deere.
the John Deere dealership. Yes,
That would be right around the bend, wouldn't it?
correct. What they've done is there's an application for some fill to alter the site is what's been
But what is
applied
he,
for.
what is he putting in another
I don't know.
tractor shop, or is he putting well it would be nice. What do I know? What is it? I mean, it's going to hurt the environmental. I mean, there's a lot of. I hear you want to fill up some area, and I don't know what you're filling up. That's
Well,
what it says here.
It's on the
You can fill it.
application. It's on the application, and there is a report on today's agenda for the council to consider. So if you'd like to stay and listen to that portion of the meeting, you're more than welcome to do,
I
sir.
will stay. I mean,
Very good.
See what's going on. I kept the property long enough, so I don't think another couple hours is going to hurt.
Fair enough, sir. I think if you hear the report, a
Well,
lot of your questions will be
I'm
answered.
going to hit 110 anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good.
For a while, yeah.
All right. Thank you, sir. Anyone else, Madam Clerk?
I don't. A few people trickled in there, so I just want to make sure if anyone else was here to speak at open forum, you can come forward and just state your name.
Okay. Very good.
Are you here to speak for at open forum?
I'm just here to speak about that property that he was talking
Yep.
about. I'm the owner.
So just come forward to the mic, please, sir.
Good afternoon.
Yes, hello. I'm just here to,
State your name.
oh, Elmer Martin.
Yeah. So your application has been submitted and there's a report on today's agenda to deal with the request.
Yeah,
So if there's anything else you'd like to add, or at that point, we could ask some questions as well.
yep, that's fine.
All right. Thank you, sir. So I need a confirmation of the agenda. If someone care to move that, please. Madam Clerk.
Just, we have an amendment for staff report, fire 2025-005.
So we need a motion to confirm the agenda as amended.
To include that report.
Jim?
yes.
Martin, any discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Is there any declaration of interest related to any item on today's agenda? Not seeing any. If one should arise during the course of the meeting, you can declare it at that time. Delegations and presentations. We have Community Foundation, Gray Bruce. We have Stuart Reed, who is the Executive Director, and Carl Ellis is the Chair of our Southgate Committee. Stuart, welcome. Good to see you, sir. The floor is yours. Oh, and Heather Renton is here as well. Absolutely. Hey, Heather.
We had a wonderful storytelling gathering in Dundalk to celebrate neighborhood small grants, which I'm going to talk about today, one of the great aspects of the Southgate Community Fund. And I'm very pleased, Your Worship and Council, to come and just give you a brief update about things at the Community Foundation as well. And move my slides along. We've been quietly growing and expanding our reach. I have put some couple of quick facts on the slide for you today. The Community Foundation now manages more than 204 funds, and our asset base is tipped over $23 million in endowed assets that we're managing. And last year in 2024, we granted over $860,000 back to community groups, charities, not-for-profits right across the region. And we're very proud that our listing of community funds is growing as well. We now have 8 active community funds, including Owen Sound, Meaford, Grey Highlands, Saugeen Shores, a brand new one in West Grey called Saugeen River Country Community Fund. Town of Blue Mountains has Blue Mountain Legacy Fund, Southgate, and Kincardine. So we're really excited about that activity. And the Southgate Community Fund, we're very proud, is, whoops, clicking too many times, was established in 2020, as you recall, with a donation from the township of $30,000, which was part of a 5-year promise gift. And we're building the fund with those amounts and other donations from community. In 2024, we began granting with this small neighborhood grants program that I'm going to speak to you about today. And our advisory committee is actively meeting and has transited to a committee of community foundation and includes 4 members. And we have 3 here today, Councillor Dobreen and Carl Ellis, Heather Renton, and Carolyn Dyer is also a member of that group too. And we're so grateful for their advisement and participation on the management of the fund. And so at December 31st, 2024, we were just tipping over $100,000 in the fund that is providing the assets that allow us to grant every year. So Neighborhood Small Grants is a program that we started last year. In 2023, we offered granting through the fund through our community grants program, but we didn't have applications from Southgate. And so it raised to our attention the fact that, there's a lot of activity in the region, but perhaps not our articulated organizations with charitable numbers. So we wanted to try this model, which is we're borrowing from our friends in British Columbia, about grassroots dollars that go right to community members that are coming together to support events or gatherings of neighbors or training or education or meals, any types of grassroots activity we wanted to support with funding. So we offered $500 grants through the township. Township acted as our qualified donee to flow to those individuals. And I'm here today to tell you a little bit about some of the success stories of that activity. And we're very proud of it at Community Foundation Grey Bruce. I believe that we're one of the first community foundations in Ontario to celebrate this model. And I know that it's something our peers are talking about. And Southgate is the success story that we're going to be talking about in the year ahead. So some of the funds went to support the Cowtown Lunch Brunch, which was a meal for seniors. There was also an intergenerational component with participation from local schools, and capacity building was the goal of the grant they increased their attendance from 60 to 150 attendees with the support of the small neighborhood grant. There's a picture here of the event on the slide. We also supported the King Edward School Reunion, and that was a multi-tiered event too, a presentation, dinner, and social time for local people. And there was all sorts of convivial refreshments and coming together. And youth also participated in that event as well. And at the bottom of the slide, we're including a little bit of anecdotal discussion. John says, 50 years passes quickly. I had a great time reconnecting with former friends and classmates. So again, a wonderful bringing together of neighbors and friends and associates to really builds an inclusive community where everybody belongs. The Southgate Community Connection also received a grant of $500, and they were also engaged with food security and getting meals out to people, feeding 100 people each month. They needed some extra dollars for kitchen utensils. And at the bottom of the slide, you can see commemoration by Kim, who says, the organizers seamlessly cook and feed people young and old. None of them look frazzled and each always have a moment to chat. Such a great evening at our ever-growing community. So again, that's a wonderful feel-good story about how food brings people together and reaching out to others that perhaps in need to make sure everyone is included at the table is a great goal of the Neighborhood Small Grants. The Dundalk Santa Claus Parade was a great success, of course. I guess it was so much enjoyed that you've kept the snowdrifts around for a couple extra months just to remind yourselves of the great success with the Santa Claus Parade. But we had a little commemoration of that this morning with some of the organizers and heard about what a feel-good opportunity that is. Families coming together and kids sitting on snowdrifts. And one of our people told us about walking the parade route, giving out candy to kids, and all those smiles and the goodwill that is generated from a community coming together like that is so very much worth the investment of a small neighborhood grant. And we also had the Dundalk Southgate Pride Parade as well, which was celebrated with a grant. And the grant supported some of the community outreach, balloon making, face painting, and those types of things, and also some prizes to encourage participation from the community. And again, a testimonial at the bottom from Cassia says, "You help make the LGBTQIA community, adults and children, have a safe, fun, non-judgmental day." So another great success. So, of course, organizations in Southgate are eligible to apply to the Community Foundation for other means of support beyond the neighborhood small grants, which are for individuals. So anyone who represents a not-for-profit or a charity can apply for a community grant or a capital grant. And last year, we were very pleased that the Friends of Dundalk Library received a community grant to support some literacy initiatives, digital literacy with Launchpad tablets, which are made available to families to offer enhanced education and reading activities for young people, and also these literacy kits, which are signed out by families and teachers to afford extra activity for reading as well. We also funded some capital grants locally. The Egremont Optimist Club received some funding, $10,000 for accessibility, some upgrades to bathrooms, and we are very pleased about the way the project unfolded, with a lot of, we call it sweat equity, with the Optimist Club pitching in, and also the local company that was chosen to organize the construction, used local labor, and it's pumping money back into the community here as well, which we're so thrilled to see. And the Dundalk Agricultural Society, we've been supporting the recladding of the Heritage Building. That was a $15,000 grant that's improving the functionality of the Agricultural Society and its use as a community hub as well, which is another feel-good story. So today I come, and I know our remarks today are broadcast across the region, and we really encourage groups to consider applying for funding to Community Foundation Grey Bruce. The Neighborhood Small Grants application is open right now. It's online. And also on April 15th, charities and not-for-profits can apply for a community grant. And this year, we've increased the maximum to $5,000 for applicants. And we've also increased the amount that's in the budget that's available to support administration of a project. And that's gone from 10% to 25%. So on a $5,000 grant, there's $1,250 that can be used to support staff salaries, materials, supplies, equipment that are needed to run a program. So we're hoping that that's great incentive to get a lot of people taking the time to apply. And we encourage groups in the community to reach out to myself or our grants coordinator, Melissa D'Souza Harris, who's with me here today. And we're poised and ready to help them through the process of applying and making sure that their application's successful. We also relate all of our granting to our vital signs categories of community wellness, and they're on the screen there. And we do have another vital signs report that we're working on presently. It's coming out in October. And that's going to be another look at those indicators of well-being and how we're doing in Grey and Bruce in relation to those goals. And part of our process of producing that report are going to be some community consultations that we're undertaking in the spring and summer, where we'll be coming probably down to Southgate to talk to people in a town hall meeting format about what we're learning from the data we're researching and getting their response in terms of priorities and how they're feeling about those issues of community well-being that are unearthed through the vital signs process. So I thank you very much for your time today, and I'm very happy to answer any questions that council may have from the report delivered.
Well, thank you, Stuart. And I can assure everyone that the projects that Community Foundation has supported have been very well received in the community. And regarding the vital signs report, it's a very, very interesting reading, and I encourage everyone to take a look at that when it does come out. Are there any questions for Stuart this morning? You must have done a really good, well, you did do a
Thank you.
really good job. So thank you so much for your time, Stuart. And
pleasure.
Melissa, thank you so much. And Carl and Heather. Oh, Barb has a question. Barb?
Thank you, through you, and we can't let you go without one question. For anyone listening, does the Community Foundation staff through Melissa help guide individuals who are unsure of whether or not their project might qualify, or how to access the website or the grant opportunity? Could you elaborate on that just a little bit for those who might be thinking about it?
Thank you, Councillor. And of course, we are here to help. And like our tagline on our logo says, we're here for good. And we really want to make sure that people are successful in their ask. So we can provide accommodation and support all the way through the application process, and also good, healthy conversation about eligibility criteria. And also some local not-for-profits might need a charitable entity to be a sponsoring agent for them. And so we can also facilitate those partnerships and collaborations to make sure everyone has access to the funding that they need to complete their project. So please, as you suggest, give us a call, and we're there to help.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right.
Thank you.
Brian, just,
Did I?
yeah, move it.
I need a mover and seconder to receive the presentation. Martin and Barb, all those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. The next delegation and presentation is the Voice of the River presentation by Peter Smith of the Canadian Centre for Rural Creative and Peter Muir of the Grand River Theatre. So I will ask for a motion before we start this one for a mover and seconder. Jim and Barb. Okay, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you very
Welcome.
much on this beautiful day. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council staff, I thank you for your time today. I don't take it for granted. It's much appreciated. Listening to the speakers that came on before, we are in an interesting time. I don't need to tell anybody at this table that. And for me, community lies at the core of how we're going to get through this. And community includes everybody in the community. So the project that we started 3 years ago is called The Voice of the River, the Grand River Community Play. So during COVID, the last major crisis that we all went through, I was invited to something called the Grand River Histories Project. There's a group of people from up and down the Grand River. There were people there from Dundalk. There were people there from Port Maitland, from Six Nations, from Brantford, all up and down the river, across the watershed. And I was there and I listened to the stories of the river. And they came from all students, researchers, scientists, environmentalists, community folk, business people. They just poured their hearts out about how much they love the Grand River and why they love the Grand River. And it had its challenges and issues as well. And after a couple of months of listening to these stories in the Hollywood squares on Zoom, as we do, I thought this would be interesting to try and tie all of these stories together. So I come from the land of theater, film, and television. I've written stories all of my life. I've run theater companies. I've done a lot of different activities. And I've actually produced 2 community plays, one in the Arctic and one in Blythe over at the festival there when I was AD. They're transformative experiences. They include anyone who wants to participate. There's no exclusivity to this project. Dundalk is at the headwaters of the Grand River, although I talked to 4 people today in Dundalk and I asked, where are the headwaters? The what? I said, the headwaters of the Grand River. Well, maybe over in Proton, or maybe, let's see, at the creek here. What was the name of that creek? Holy Creek. So I'm thinking, okay, we want to start the production here in Dundalk. And I think the whole idea about it being at the headwaters, one of the things I did hear back with Mary when I first came up here a few years ago was when people say, where does the Grand River start? You get 12 people going, at my house. So we're going to build that into the play. So what happens is we want to have a picnic, a parade, and then we're going to put the show on. Now, the show is stories from here all the way down to Port Maitland. We have been gathering them over the last 3 years. We've done workshops in puppetry and stilt walking. We have done parades. We have done a lot of different things, but we haven't been back to Dundalk since we first came here, and this was the first place that we came to. And it was at a coffee shop in Dundalk across from that great mural with all of the buggies and the people. And in fact, I feel like I could step right into it. So what we're asking is for council's, I guess, nod to us to be able to do this. And the plan is to come here on the 30th of July. And I'm going to back this up in a second, but to come here on the 30th of July for a rehearsal, set things up, look at the parade route, where we're going to set up the stage and things. We'll be bringing lights and sound and things like that with us. And then perform it the next night. So the idea is a picnic starts at 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock. There's a parade from 6 to 7, and then the show goes from 7 to 9. There is this core show that runs about 50 minutes, but then there are stories from the community separately from Dundalk and from Southgate that will be in the show. This is where the community aspect comes into it. So people get up, whatever talent they got, they can tell the story from their hearts, they can sing the story, and we will assist them. We do it through workshops. We come together, we'll be coming back here more regularly now to rehearse, to hold workshops. In fact, there's a quilt workshop that is coming on April the 12th in Dundalk. So the quilt workshop is a series of quilt squares made by people up and down the river, and we put it together in a really interesting quilt. We've got a story for every single quilt square. We're about stories. It's about telling the story of the river by the people of the river to the people of the river. Also, the tributaries will go to KW and to Guelph. We're going in there. We've been in there, and we'll continue to do that. The last day of this is August 23rd, and we're doing an all-day community palooza at Chiefswood Park at Six Nations. And if you've never been, it is a remarkable place. So everyone's invited to that. We're hoping people will set up booths and things like that. We're trying to bring as many people from this river to one place to share their stories. There'll be a concert, there'll be food, we'll do all of those things. But for me, and I'm of a particular vintage where I've had more miles behind me than in front of me. But the miles that are in front of me are going to be dedicated and focused on community engagement, community involvement. I've sat on boards. I have talking to council. I've been in economic development boards, tourism boards. I have been around in not just in the arts, but I know by bringing people together that good things can happen. And the stories you heard today from you about and I know foundations as well, what they're contributing to is hope, is a dream. Someone with an idea, someone who says, well, what if do you think if maybe, yeah, we can do that. It's a celebration of the river. It's a celebration of community. So Peter Muir is here. He's here. He's from the Grandview Theatre in Brantford. We have a creative team, designer, musician, composers. We've got people that are working with us. But really, everyone's volunteering. Everyone's throwing their time into this thing because we believe that if we're going to do something good, it's going to come from the community and it's going to come through sharing our stories. So that's basically it. We got to figure out the parade route. I was curious about the Santa Claus parade. I don't know if it's done down Main Street. I don't know where it's done. So I guess we'll need a permit for that. We'll need to figure that out. We also, over here, permits. Someone was identified as.
It's a county road, so we'll need a permit from the county, but we can do that.
And then
We can do
the
that.
provincial highways, and oh yes, I've been down that route. Okay, maybe we'll figure it out that we'll sneak down the back alleys or something. Anyway, your help in that would be really great. We're thinking maybe at the park, holding it over there if that's possible. And really, it's getting the word out. It's saying if you want to come to the rehearsals, to these workshops, we'll teach you how to make shadow puppets. We'll listen to your stories. We do story circles all the time, where people just sit there and they say whatever they want about the Grand River. And those stories are amazing and funny and redonkulous and great and heartfelt. In some cases, very emotional about the flooding, for example, in 74. Like the stories that are coming out of Six Nations and the Haldeman Tract, I'm just blown away. I mean, I'm standing in front of you here and I'm going to have a Holstein ice cream at the end of this, to let you know, a little economic development there. I absolutely am having that. The tarts too, probably, maybe both. So we want to bring people to the community as well. So the Grand River Project is really to bring people to the place, to see the place differently, see it in celebration, to see it in the stories of the place, to have them come back. It's a 310-kilometer play. It is an enormous undertaking. It was crazy at the beginning when I said we were going to do it, and it's still a little bit crazy, but we're doing it. So we're going to start in Dundalk in July, and we'll be down at by August 23rd down at Six Nations, down at Chiefswood Park. And we're going to Dunnville tomorrow. We're up and down this river all over the place, and we're meeting some remarkable people who have great heart and love of this place and where their home is. I think that's basically it. I think there was a little video, but I don't think you got the sound. That's fine. Don't eat, but it'll be grand. Anyway, so
Grant.
we're busting our humps every day in every way. I honestly, like, I'm driving out here and on this sunshiny day, parking in that parking lot and knowing that you're all involved in community and pouring your hearts into this thing. And I know it's not easy and it's not simple. It's the only hope we got, I think. It's in community. Somebody mentioned the tariffs. I don't know, maybe it was the flags, the tariffs. There's nothing we can do about that. But what we can do about it is we can stick together as communities. And I think in there is our hope. And then from there comes ideas. And from there, other things can happen. So that's really my shtick. I'm open to listen to any questions you may have, including why. But I think I've told you why. But it's remarkable, honestly. The one I did from Resolute Bay in the Arctic was in Inuktitut. That was mad and great. The one in Blythe involved 150 people, the rutabaga plant, 5 stages. It was extraordinary. And for me, as a professional artist and someone who works in the trade, there's nothing like it. There really is nothing like this in producing work. It's unique, it's peculiar, it can be rough, but it's authentic. So that's my pitch to Southgate. And I gotta say, Southgate is about the size of France. I was in Dundalk. I was driving. Mary says, I have a heavy foot. So I'm going, okay. So you didn't. You stuck. Oh yeah, you did great. We were passing trucks and cars. I thought, where are we going? And we come all the way over here, and then the Holstein, and that you had me there. Forget it. I'll be back to Holstein for sure. But anyway, I thank you very much for your time. But any questions you got, I'm willing to field them.
Thank you, sir, for your presentation and your enthusiasm. You actually had me at when you said there was food involved. So Joan, you have a question, please.
Thank you for a great presentation. You have me enthused, and being a community advocate myself and also having a non-for-profit organization which deal with the community, you get me all excited. I think I want to be a part of this.
Well, yes, please.
Where would you be holding these workshops and these rehearsals?
Oh, actually, that's a good thing.
What was your thoughts
We
about
could
that?
use your help with that too. So I know the United Church has gone through a renovation in Dundalk, but because we're all volunteers, we're trying to get stuff in kind, or if anything we can do, we have got some money and we will be putting that toward things. We're renting a truck and sound equipment, lighting equipment, but that was one place. I'd love it if the town hall was refurbed. It won't be. Oh yeah, no, listen, that's going to be awesome. The other spot, what was the other spot you said? Oh, McIntyre. So that was another spot. So we'll hold them there, I think, if we can. We got to check it out. We haven't checked it out with them yet.
Well, you can reach out to the Southeast Ray Community Health Center. That's with Erskine.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's great.
And of course, the Dundalk United Church, as you mentioned before.
Okay. You can be in it. Like seriously, I'm not, that's not a joke. You can be in it and you can tell your story. Also, Brenna's here. So I've met Brenna, pointing you out. Brenna has been amazing and supported this project, just to let you know. And she comes from the EDCO outfit, which you all know, the Development Council of Ontario. And I know the president there, Belinda, and she calls her a rock star. And she is. I know. Yeah, sorry, I just had to embarrass you. Okay, so if that's it, I guess I can.
Barb has a question.
Oh, yes.
And then Martin.
Thank you through you, and thank you, Peter. I think you're already in touch with Brenna, who I think can help you navigate the various staff members that can resolve the permit issues for parades and liaise with the county and facilities. I'm not going to commit to, facilities for the workshops, but staff will come with recommendations. To Councillor John's point, the Southeast Grey Community Health Center is the not-for-profit. They're located in Markdale, but they have an outlet in Dundalk, the Erskine Center, to her point, and it's a beautiful space for workshops and things. They may be able to help because you're not charging a fee to do that. And as I said, I think I was just going to suggest that you contact the clerk, but you're already in touch with Brenna and she knows who you need to work
Yeah,
with.
okay.
There's also Kayla Best is a person who could, well, if you go to the website, there's a donation grants and funds.
Mhm.
I mentioned it earlier, but we have awarded that money, but I don't know what's left in the budget or if the project would qualify. So again, Brenna can push you out to whom you need to speak to.
Awesome. That's that's really, really appreciated. So I will. But no, that really helps because we're that's happening up and down the river. People are saying we got a little bit here and a little bit, and that will just help pay for gas for artists, for technicians to be able to participate in this thing. No, that's great. Thanks a lot, Barb.
Martin,
Yeah, well, I have to admit, microphone first. I have to admit, if this project shows even a quarter of your enthusiasm, I think everybody's going to get involved.
actor, don't forget.
Yeah, the whole workshop telling individual stories. How is that ethos going to be portrayed in the parade?
So
Because that might decide how big the parade's going to be, which will affect your route.
Yeah, no, good question. So in Cambridge, for example, and I'm using Cambridge as an example because it'll answer your question a little bit, but I'll come back to Dundalk. So Cambridge, we are going to parade right along the river in Cambridge, and we're going to stop in certain locations of historic relevance, and we're going to be doing scenes in there. So that'll be different than other places. For Dundalk, we could do some of that, but the story circles they'll be ongoing. There'll be something that we will do, and we'll set up a workshop in a space in Dundalk or in this area where people come, and we ask them to answer two questions initially. The first is, what does the Grand River mean to you, and what do you mean to the Grand River? The second question has provoked some really interesting responses. One is, how would I know what the river thinks about me? But then it starts to change, and people start getting into a really interesting conversation about the relationship to the river and the relationship the river has with us. So those will just, in answer to that component, the story circles will continue to gather stories. And that really is interesting for community members, because in creativity, when we're working like this, and I know you got a big agenda and I'm eating up too much time already, but when we come together in creativity, what happens is a different part of our brain gets excited. And when people start to tell stories, we see ourselves differently and we see others differently. So why that story is important, and you listen to someone tell a story, and it can be emotional, it can be funny, it can be all sorts of things. It changes the way we think about our neighbors. And that to me is something that's happened in the story circle. So those are going to be ongoing. That'll be regularly. We'll figure out when the dates are and where we're going to do it. With regard to the parade in Dundalk and the storylines, we could do that as we're doing it in Cambridge, the reason I brought that up, or we could just wait until we get to the park if that's where we're going to settle for. So that option's open though, because walking around today in Dundalk, some of the architecture is fantastic. Like, it really is. And then those murals, and then the murals from last year that Brenda introduced me to, I visited all of them. There's some very cool things you might want to stop and have a little chat about, or do a little scene, or sing a song or something. So let's not lose sight of that. That's a good possibility. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Peter. I really appreciate your time. And thank you, Mr. Muir, for your presence as well. Thank you. So, yeah, I don't think we need a motion necessarily. I think everyone's in agreement to see you carry on with your creation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anyway, just all the best to all of you. I mean it. And thank you for your work.
Thank you, sir. So all those in favor of receiving the presentation? That is carried. Thank you. Adoption of the minutes of March 5th of this year. Council and closed session meeting minutes are there. Someone care to move to receive receipt of those minutes? Joan and Jim, thank you so much. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. Reports of municipal officers, building and bylaw services. We have a report here regarding bylaw enforcement and the canine control contract with MSS, which is Municipal Services. Support Services, Municipal Support Services. And so the motion is there. Someone care to move that, please? Barb and Joan, thank you so much. And Ken, you're giving this report. Please, welcome.
Yes, thank you, and good afternoon, your worship, members of council. I'll do the initial presentation, and then myself, Hannah Coombs, who is our bylaw officer, Phil Schramm, who is our building official, will be here to answer any questions. I'd also note that MSS staff are also online in case we need them as well. Brought before you today is the proposed contract with MSS for after-hours bylaw enforcement support and canine control. As council will recall, you issued an RFP last year and MSS was the organization selected. Due to staff turnover, we were not able to get the contract brought forward and negotiated until now. The proposed budget that's outlined in the report represents a full year of that contract. I'll give Phil kudos for a fantastic guesswork as to putting estimates into the budget. So what we're showing in table 1 is just some shifting around of money in the budget because we needed to have something there. And so we overestimated on one and underestimated on the other. So we're proposing a few shifts, but essentially this provides the and maintains the intention of the RFP and the service levels that were expected out of that proposal. So that's our presentation. The contract is attached in a bylaw and we're open for questions.
Very good. Thank you so much, Ken. Are there any questions regarding the report? Jason?
How many calls would they have done for us last year roughly between K9 and after hours? Because I think I only seen 3 after hours called, was it?
Yeah, through you, I think there was roughly about 3 to 4 calls for the after hours on weekends. K9, I'd have to look back. There was a lot.
Like what's a lot?
Anna, do you have any kind of context on how many there might have been? Canine control?
Same as Phil, I would have to have a look at the Excel spreadsheet that was done up. I know that it was a lot of canine control was bulk of the calls that we received. But I would have to look at the Excel spreadsheet to confirm the number.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Barb?
Thank you through you and thank you. I wonder, I saw a mention that the telephone number was incorrect for a period of time. Would that result in a lower number of calls? Like if only 3 bylaw complaint calls all year, was that because the number didn't work, or how long did the number not work?
Through you, I think when our website got updated, I don't think it transferred the number properly. So I do believe it was correct. And then just went our website.
I can elaborate on that. So
Sure. Lindsay, please.
yeah, as Phil stated, it was correct before the transition. The transition, I think, happened by the end of November or end of October, beginning of December. So it was only probably wrong for a month or month and a half or so, because then we realized it a few weeks ago. So
It didn't really affect the quantity of calls.
I don't think it would have had a big effect at all.
Thank you.
Martin?
Yeah, thank you, Brian. In that table 1 where it said revenues for 2025 and actual budget, 35,000, that's a lot of dogs. What was it? What was the actual revenue for 2024? Was there a difference there?
I believe the revenue for dog tags was the total value you're looking for was, I think, 42,000.
That's surprising. No, thank you.
And that's only half the dogs.
Well, yeah, that's.
Jason?
So
and then Joan.
we're gonna be at $80,000 contract. Do I read that right, or is that with?
Through your worship, that's correct, but then keep in mind that it's also offset by revenues from kennel, kennel licenses, dog tags, and we're also proposing to get direction from council to offset kennel inspection costs. So when you look at the overall budget, this will more than likely bring it to a point that it's as close to cost recovery as we could possibly do without actually getting any direction from council to be cost recovery.
Go ahead.
Well, it just seems to me, here I go again, but I think our old K-9 bylaw officer was 26,000 or something. I get they're gonna be doing more work, but I mean, we've got a number that they can't call at night. They've done 3 calls for the other. We don't know what they've done for that. And we want to increase it to that much. I don't know. I'm just pretty skeptical of it.
So through your worship, as we've noted, and Lindsay noted, with the website transition, there was a temporary period where that phone number was not accessible. It's been corrected. We've gone back, as Hannah and Phil mentioned, to the report we provided you in February. Dog calls are increasing. We had 50 last year alone. Was the total in the report we provided in February.
Thanks,
And
Kent.
we expect those numbers to continue to increase as the township increases.
Okay, thank you. Joan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, but that was a part of my question that Jason asked. Is it an increase of 31,200 that is added on to the actual that you budgeted for?
So through your worship, just going into the report, as you can see in, let me just get it open here. That's weird. Didn't went open. You look at table 1 on page 2. What we're basically saying is that in your proposed budget, we had estimated K-9 control to be at 50,000. It will come in at about 81,200, but we had overestimated the cost for bylaw enforcement at 30,000, and that contract would come in at 11,320. So we're suggesting that you just shift the excess from the overestimate of bylaw enforcement over to K-9, and then with the cost recovery of the kennel inspections, that should pick up the remaining 12,600. And if we do this right, and projecting with growth of dogs in the township, this may end up putting the program into pretty close to cost recovery.
Thanks
So-
for the clarification.
So 0 impact on the budget.
We're trying to do as close to that as we
Right.
can without any direction from council to do so.
Yep. Joan?
Thanks, Ken, for the clarification, but also 3 calls for after our bylaw. I think though, because you're bringing a report to us, we should be able to know even approximately how many calls for the dogs. But you just said something about 50?
Yes, so through your worship, if you'll recall, we had that year-end stats report in February. So you're correct, Councillor John, we did commit to providing you those stats, and I've mentioned to our team that we're aiming for the first quarterly report of that sometime in April, so stay tuned. But yes, you'll be able to see those stats on a quarterly and yearly basis. In terms of what Phil was mentioning about 3 after-hours calls, we've estimated in this budget for 5 after-hours calls. So there's some padding in the budget there as well. So there may end up being a surplus depending on what happens this summer.
Okay, thank you,
Thank
Ken.
you. I think you might get more than that after our call with the new growth. So bear that in mind.
We'll see. Barb?
I can echo Councillor Rice's comments about when this was brought to us, the low-cost provider was going to be MSS for the K-9 control. And they were awarded that contract based on that. Well, and on other rankings. And now it's 3 times the amount of what we anticipated it being. I get the fact that there's more calls because there's more dogs and more dogs at large that are not being that pet owners are not being as responsible for those particular dogs. So there could be a few dogs that are getting multiple calls. But I mean, we used to have the revenues offset the contract before. and it was almost cost recoveries just for canine control is what I'm talking about. And I do have a concern that this is a bit of a runaway amount now that, you know, they have been awarded the contract. It just seems to be significantly more than what we had anticipated. So we'll have to keep monitoring that because, I mean, it's their only option at this point in time. And I'll leave it to staff to respond or manage.
Okay, Ken?
Your worship, if I could, maybe
Yep.
I'll start. Phil might jump in after. Keep in mind that when you issued the RFP, that was April, May of last year. So you were actually budgeting for a contract that was only for a portion of the year. You weren't paying for a contract that was for a full year, which is what we're budgeting for with this. The contract does set out, you know, an increase each year in terms of inflation. So that gives us the room to know exactly how much that's going to be each year. In terms of the actual staffing costs, I think I'll turn it over to Phil because he's done some analysis of what a full-time, what that would look like.
Phil?
So through you, right now, we do not have the employees to handle this. And it would significantly increase the budget for K9 and bylaw. And this, excuse me, this K9 is also, they do all of the kennel inspections. They're handling everything. It's not just picking up dogs at large. So they go in, do their inspections. It is in the report for 35 hours a week. That's averaged over 7 days. So it's every day of the week, not just your 5. If this contract does not get approved, we would have to hire a full-time K9 and another full-time bylaw. And with the difference in 2 officers would be anywhere from 152 to 168,000 a year.
Okay, thank you.
Plus your vehicles and everything.
Yep. Barb?
Just to follow up, and I totally understand that to hire full-time dog catchers or kennel inspections, but we had a contract with an individual who did the inspections, who did pick up dogs, but we didn't have as many dogs or as many calls as we do now. So with growth comes an expectation of service, and this is an increased level of service that we are bound to provide because people don't keep their dogs contained and the kennel operators haven't been inspected. So there's going to be catch up on that because for whatever reason, they didn't get done. So I'm not unsupportive of carrying on with a contract, but we need to keep on with these costs because it's just, you know, it's not a free, you know, well, we'll just bill it back. But we also need to understand if they're not coming out or if, you know, okay, the budget is this, well, we've hit that mark. We're not going to respond to any calls yet. I don't know what all those intricacies are of the contract, but I mean, I do understand it. I just, it's a ticker shock, right? It's sticker shock when we were looking at 25 to 30,000 before, and that's what we were anticipating.
Jason?
Well, my math, 50 calls and 3 after hours, that's over 1,500 a call. These people were here talking about the way of the world, and $1,500, I might have put it in for the RFP for that. That's pretty good. But so you're telling me if we don't go with this, we're gonna have to hire 2 full-time people to so how many bylaw officers do we have right now?
We currently have 1.
I thought we had like,
I'm also a fill-in
yeah,
for
we
support.
only have 1 fill-in? Okay, I thought we had more than that. Okay.
Okay. Jim, please.
Good afternoon, good people. Yeah, I recall this report when it was written and came to council in February. I thought it was very good and detailed. I recall too that council did not have any questions about this report at the time. But I do have it up right now. And it does say, you know, like for November, that was our biggest month where there were 3 calls in Dundalk for K9 and 12 outside of Dundalk. So yeah, we're talking about growth, but the stats right here are saying this isn't because of the growth area so much per se, is how I'm analyzing this. But we've been requested to check into bringing a higher level of service for K9 and for bylaw. And this was the approach and the alternatives that were selected. So that's the road we've went down. And to the phone number issue that was happened with the transition of the website, that was not an MSS fault. That was an internal fault within our system that failed. So I just wanted to clarify those points.
Thanks, Jim. Jim rather, sorry, go ahead.
So how long are we currently contracted with this company to do this for?
Ken?
Through your worship, just pulling the contract itself up. 1 second here. I believe it's 2 years. So I believe it's 2 years, but my website connection is being a little temperamental. So give me 1 second here.
If I could just jump in there, it says 1.2 of the contract. It shows that the engagement of the contractor pursuant to this agreement shall commence on the 19th day of March of this year and shall expire on the 30th day of April of 2027.
Thank you. You were faster than my laptop.
Just happened to have it sitting here, that's all. So 2 years. And it is a contract, of course. So, I mean, if it works out, that's great. We can renew it or change it. If it doesn't work out, we can issue another RFP or do what we need to do at that time. Ken?
And if I can just add, your worship, you know, both myself and Phil are very mindful of costs. So we have been keeping an eye on things. And as we noted in the report in February, there were a number of one-time costs into the K9 program that are just that one-time costs that occurred last year. So the rewrite of the bylaw, for example, that alone was a significant one-time charge into the program costs. You're not going to see that again this year because we're not rewriting the bylaw again. So we are keeping an eye on costs and invoices as they go.
Thank you, Ken. Okay, any other questions, discussion? Okay, I'll call the question. Absolutely. Madam Clerk, a recorded vote has been requested. Just before we go there, Madam Clerk, Barb has a question.
Thank you. And was that the first meeting in February? That's the K9 stats attachment 2 for that February meeting, right? Where there were 15 total in Dundalk and 35 in for the whole year. Like that was the whole year.
35
outside of Dundalk and 15. So a total of 50,
Yes.
right? Thank you.
Madam Clerk?
A recorded vote was called for item 8.1.1, BES 2025-005, by law enforcement and canine control contract with municipal support services. Counselor Shipston,
Yes.
Counselor Ferguson,
Yes.
Mayor Milne,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Delbreen,
Yes.
Counselor Rice,
Nope.
Counselor John. Counselor Singh Soares is absent. By a vote of 5-1, that's carried.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving on to the bylaw related to that same contract. Would someone care to move adoption of that bylaw? Barb and Joan, thank you. Any further discussion on the bylaw? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Emergency services. It is 2:00. Do you want to recess for 5 minutes? I know the fire department's chomping to go, but I'm going to make them wait for 5 minutes. So we'll take a recess for 5 minutes or thereabouts. Thank you. Are we ready to roll? Where did, well, I guess we got a quorum. We got most of the staff back. Phil went for a smoke. I know. All right, let's bring the meeting back to order. Emergency services. Chief Malnick, welcome. We have a report here regarding the Town of Hanover Fire Protection Agreement. Someone care to move that, please? Martin and Jason, thank you. Derek, floor is yours, sir. Welcome.
Thank you. Through the mayor, we have looked to enter into a contract with the town of Hanover. In 2021, the province came out with the mandatory certification for firefighters, requiring that firefighters be able to certify to Fire 1, Fire 2, hazmat awareness and hazmat ops by 2026, July 1st. And then they put another 2-year window onto anything for technical rescues to certify to that you would be required to certify. In conversations with the province as well, we have our DNR bylaw setting the levels of service that we provide through Southgate. No longer have they deemed it acceptable for us to not have a solution. So if we do not provide the service, we need to find somebody to contract it out to. That way emergency services will still get called. We're not standing there not knowing what to do. So in that conversations, we've reached out to the town of Hanover, who is going through certification for static water, surface water, or swift water, surface water, swift water, surface water, ice water, as well as high angle rope rescue. So all four they're going through that right now. They are certified to high angle and they are certified to surface. They are working on swift water currently and then ice water next winter to meet the compliance dates. It is a lot of money to certify and a lot of time on members to get to this certification. Big note is some of the NFPA standards did change. Currently, we were operating to a shore-based level for water rescue where we'd be able to tie off to a vehicle, advance closer to the riverbank, and throw a life throw bag to a person in the water if we needed to. Since the NFPA has changed some of their standards, that would now classify as operational level. So us to be able to provide that service would be easily an additional 40 to 60 hours of training to our members plus equipment. So we are just looking to enter our contract Hanover out to, if we ever were to have a water rescue incident, they would be dispatched out at the same time as the Dundalk Fire Department or the Durham Fire Department or Wellington North. This contract makes them available to all of Southgate. And we would pay MTO rate as a cost recovery back to them, only if they're used. Questions?
Thank you, sir. Martin, questions?
Thank you, Derek. You said the 40 to 60 hours, that is a lot of training. I know that for a fact, and a lot of cost. But with that said, with the amount of people you have on staff, would you handpick the people you think that would be good for that because of their, like, would there be a criteria for you to pick a handful that would be on call instead of maybe the whole department, if that's what you were getting at? I have one more after.
So through the mayor, to answer that question, because we're in a unique volunteer fire department, you have to be able to provide that service 24 hours a day if you're doing it. So it's kind of hard to pick. You'd have to pick people that you know are always going to show up. And so that's dependent on your staffing levels at that point. Also, there would be criteria as per NFPA standard to certify to operational levels. Certain members would have to go through a swim test as well. So,
Martin, you had a follow-up?
Yeah. So the MTO rate, could you enlighten me on that? You've mentioned it before, but is that per person, by vehicle, by call, or?
Through the mayor, the MTO rate is an established rate used throughout the fire service. Currently, if we have a MTO road running through, we get reimbursed and their rate fluctuates with the cost of living throughout the year. So it is recognized and widely used through the fire service. It is per truck per hour, and we are, don't quote me on this, about $590 a truck an hour currently.
Barb?
Thank you. And thank you for your report, and thank you for, listening to my rant the other day. Because having, rescued someone from a shoreline in my heyday, it doesn't take 40 hours to train for that. If I can do it, pretty much anyone can do it. And I doubt, as the mayor has said to me aside, is our fire service is very dedicated. When you said 40 to 60 hours of training, is that just to do that shoreline rescue, or is that all those technical water rescues? Like, is it like you're learning more than just one level of water rescue?
Through the mayor. So there's a couple different ways we can do this. If we were to advance, we could create a program, which would take a lot of staff time to create. And then you would have to send it to the province to get approval that you have created a training program that meets their expectation. And you would have to set up a training program for surface water, for swift water, for ice water for each program if you're doing it. Some things are interchangeable and you can cut down on some time. But other than that, it is each individual technical specialty itself. So surface water is water with no movement. Swift water is anything over 1 knot. So you could have a stormwater management pond that gets a little bit of wind to it, and now it's swift water. With that, so I pulled up some data based off our local RTCs. Currently, they offer surface water and rope. Ops is now a pilot program. The Ontario Fire College does not offer swift water or ice water currently. They're still developing their programs. So for surface water through the Ontario Fire College, it is 20 hours of blended online. RTC fees range from $400 to $600 a person, plus your $65 a person that goes to the Ontario Fire College. So for us to do 10 people, you'd average about $4,600, $4,700 in registration fees, plus about $7,500 in wages. So we would end up around $12,000 to train just 10 people in surface. Then you have to advance into the swift water and the ice water on top of that, if you don't create your own program.
If I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
And that would be annually?
What you have to certify, so the big cost is in the certification, and then you have to maintain those skills. So you have to provide around 40 hours of training each year to maintain those skills, or show that you are maintaining those skills.
Wow. And we don't have an Ontario Fire College now.
The Ontario Fire College is run through local RTCs. There are unregulated prices, so they can range from $100 to $600. It depends on the course, on what you're doing. They had Gravenhurst that used to cost $65, and that would cover your overnight accommodations, your food, but now that no longer exists.
So the province is no longer supporting, it's up to the municipality to provide the service. I will, I'll take a step back. I do have an amendment, but I can let the conversation unfold.
Okay, Jim?
Hey, Dick. Yeah, this is actually, I was surprised we were just doing confined spaces work at work there. And one of the guys that worked there, he's with Minto Fire Department, and they've gotten completely rid of their confined space rescues. I think they worked in, so it's kind of sounds like it's the provincial government's just putting, because he said for that, the confined space rescue, it was something like 80 hours they had to go to, and you were into the 10 people would have to have it. So it's just kind of a downloading, and it's where it's just going to be full-time fire departments that are having it.
It's not a kind of, it is a download.
Yeah.
Derek?
Through the mayor, I would agree. Some of these technical rescue services are going to be very hard for volunteer services to run. And that is where a lot of us are looking to contract out with some of these bigger departments who can feasibly support these, unless we are able to get, especially yourself, then you can look at either trading it under mutual aid for a department that offers the other service. Or you can, if you want to certify to this level, you can use that as a revenue stream to contract it out for other individuals. It honestly depends on the technical rescue. Some So for example, the Swift water, you have to certify to operational level for rope. It's a co-requisite for it, where some other ones they aren't required. So that's where you're going to get the additional hours. As same as with confined space, you're required to be operational level with rope. So that's approximately 40 hours just for that. And then your confined space on top of that. And then depending on what your turnout numbers are for your volunteers, so you're able to sustain that if a call were to happen.
Okay. Joan, you have a question? Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's not a question, it's more like a comment. Thank you very much for your report. My question was going to be how much it would cost if we would train our own person. And also thanks for the detailed report. I thought water was just water, so it wouldn't be Swift water or whatever not or whatnot. So thank you very much. It was really a great report.
Okay, Martin?
Yeah, I was, from a couple of comments, Derek, would this be duplication? Like any emergency person going out, do the police have this? If they're first on the scene, do they have this kind of training? I know they have their Marine units, so they probably obviously would, but there's no duplicity going on here. Is there?
Through the mayor, I am not aware of the police criteria. As a fire, we fall under NFPA standard, and with the provincial legislation requiring mandatory certification, this was required. Prior to this, we didn't have to certify. It was just your local ASJ would train their employees to all the JPRs, job performance requirements for that standard, and sign off they were okay. Now you have to test and build programs and get it approved by the province. I know for private contractors, they don't fall under this regulation at all, so they don't even have to be certified. But for now, the province has indicated that fire has to.
Okay. Barb?
I'll make one more comment. Our department is now trained as trainers for first aid CPR or just CPR.
We are a established Red Cross training partner where we can teach standard first aid, level C, level A, first aid, as well as BLS, basic life support, which is CPR. And there's a couple other programs that we can enter into agreements for as well. Yep.
I don't think occupying your time and charge, we wouldn't be able to charge enough to the community in order to fund all of this. Sorry. I would like to move an amendment. I support the report. I would just like to add a clause that staff bring back a report outlining the cost of this and other technical rescue training that is now mandated, and alternatives to achieving that. I think that is generic enough. I don't want to be too specific, but I also want to make sure that we're going to get some information, because it's great to contract out to another service, but if you're first on the scene and you have to wait for someone, we have the Holstein Pond, we have Wilder Lake, but we have kilometers of shoreline through all of our rivers and streams. So, cars go off the road. Anyway, that is my amendment, and hopefully it may not be this year. We'll have the contract in place, but we can look at budgeting for appropriate training, leveling up that service with more information.
Okay, is there a seconder for that amendment? Jim, thank you. Any discussion on the amendment? Okay, I'll ask all those in favor of the amendment. That is carried. Now we're back to the original motion as amended. Any more discussion? Any more questions? Jason.
To Barb's point there, you're the first on scene in a 30-foot wide river and a guy's in the middle of it. You're going to wait to, like,
I don't think
come
that's not a fair question. I don't think.
Well, that's how it was kind of, that's how
Our fire service are going to do what they can to protect our residents. Yeah, I think needs to go unsaid, but any further questions? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, sir. Now the bylaw regarding the agreement. Someone care to move that, please? Jim and Barb? Any further discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Planning Department, we have a
Mayor,
report.
The report we added, FIRE 2025-005.
Oh, yeah, right. Do I have that in front of me?
Holly's just putting it up on the
Oh,
screen.
okay, good.
It's the internal posting for the part-time deputy fire chief.
Right. So we have a report here regarding the fire service, specifically a deputy chief. Yes, thank you. I did read the report, but I don't have it in front of me. So I need a mover and a seconder to put this on the floor. Jim and Barb, or Joan, please. Anything to add, sir?
I think the report explains a lot of it. We've tried two separate models before with an external candidate as well as an internal candidate based off the reduced hours and the requirements of a quick response. It's ideal to have somebody who lives within adequate amount of time to the station, as well as somebody that already is established in the department, knows our regulations, our SOGs, SOPs. We have done a trial period, an intent to apply. We actually got that idea from one of the previous CAO ones, where each person that was interested in it had a full quarter to trial it out to see if it's if they can make it work in their own life, as well as if they were a good fit for the role. So we are just ending that at the end of Q1 and hoping to post internally to hire a deputy chief.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Any questions or discussion regarding that report? Barb.
Thank you. And thank you for bringing it forward. We did have a deputy chief at one time, reduced hours as the report mentions. And I don't see us operating going forward without one. You need a break. You can't be there 24/7, 365 days of the year, although I know that you are committed. So I support the initiative and look forward to the result.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. I think that's all the fire department stuff, is it? Yes, it is. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Planning Department, we have a report here regarding a site alteration permit application for Martin's Farm Services Incorporated. Who wants to move and second that? Jason, seconded by Jim. Thank you. Bill, I see Bill on the screen. Welcome, sir. It's good to see you again. Hope things are well in Texas.
Thank you, Mayor Milne. They're fine. Good to see council and staff and interested parties regarding this application for a site alteration permit. The location of the property is 311303 Highway 6. It is the former John Deere dealership. We have been meeting with the owner and his agent about redeveloping those lands. He has submitted a site alteration permit to fill in some holes on the property and to grade portions of the lands. And he's fulfilled all the requirements of the township's site alteration bylaw, which is referenced in the report. In his proposal, there's a fill plan prepared by a professional engineer, a protocol for testing the soils that are brought onto the site or on site, some insurance that's required. There's also a deposit for engineering and other fees that's been provided, and a letter of credit equal to the amount of site work that's been provided as well. Basically, what is happening is, if you know the property at all, kind of to the southern part in towards the center, there's a hole that needs to be filled, and then there's some grading he wants to do adjacent to the parking lot. The haul routes will be along the highway. This has been reviewed by the engineering side of Triton and the staff at the township, and we're recommending that it be approved. In terms of the bylaw itself, the site alteration bylaw doesn't apply to things that are in subdivision agreements or site plan agreements. In our meetings yesterday, the owner indicated he'd like to move forward with the fill portion of the work immediately. There's some work to do on the site development side. So he is proposing a modified farm supply outlet. And that will be coming through with a site plan later and some other Planning Act application to council later on. But he would like to move forward with the site alteration as soon as it's clear and of snow and dry, and he is able to do that. And he believes it will really tidy up the site. So our recommendation is that you accept this report and that you direct staff to issue a site alteration permit once the agreement is signed. In this case, it will be a site alteration agreement that will come first.
Very good. Thank you, Bill. Any questions for Bill? Barb.
Thank you. Hello, how are you, Bill?
Hi. Very good, thank you.
Just one question. I understand that we have a fill bylaw, and this is going to meet all of that criteria. Can you remind me and others who is responsible for oversight of the testing of the fill and where is it coming from?
Right. So the protocol that I referenced there, I didn't include it. It's fairly lengthy, but he is required to have an engineer on part of that process, and the engineers developed that protocol. And the township engineer, which would be probably Dustin Lytle from the Triton Engineering, or one of the staff would be there and they have to provide tickets and information on where it comes from. And I'm not entirely sure where it's coming from in this case, but they have to monitor the fill. It's tested to make sure it's not contaminated. And there's criteria in the bylaw about what is accepted. For instance, things like asphalt are not accepted. So yeah, it's a dual process where they're obligated to follow the protocol, and the township has monitoring rights on the material that comes in, and they keep tickets on the material that comes in, how much and where, and it's tested and so forth. So there should be origin information on where it comes from, and also review by their engineer and the township agents or engineer wherever possible. So they have to follow that, and the security is retained. In this case, I believe it's $60,000 is retained in case the township has to go in and remove something, or something happens that they don't like that needs to be rectified. So that security is held on until the engineers have certified that the work has been done properly. So the protocol will help protect the township's interests on the type of fill, and then the security is there in case it's needed. I mean, we're confident in our review of the people who provided the plan and the people who are working for Mr. Martin. So we don't expect any issues, but there are certainly safeguards in place.
Go ahead.
And just one more through you, Mayor Milne. This filling or cleaning up of the site does not provide any approvals for any development that they may have in mind going forward, and that would have to come back through the planning and building department to seek the necessary approvals should that, be more than a parking lot.
That's right.
Bill?
It doesn't, if I may, through Mayor
Yep.
Milne, that's correct. This is the act of filling. It's not considered a building permit, so they really can't change the use of that building, or they can't without permits from the CBO, and the CBO could issue certain permits if the type of work that he wants to do complies with the building code and other applicable law. But as far as changing the use the way he's proposing, based on what we know about what's coming forward, he needs a planning application in order to do what he's planning for the site, which, as I said, was a modified farm supply outlet. So it'll
Thank you,
be
Bill.
serving the agricultural community primarily. But
Thank you, Bill. Ken, do you have something to add?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Through you, just to add to what Bill was saying, part of what we've done with the site alteration process is do some process updates. If you refer to attachment 4 in the report, which is we've come up with an actual permit itself using the conditions outlined in Schedule C. And one of the things you'll see outlined in bold is this permit is not a building permit or zoning approval. The applicant is required to follow all the applicable township, county, and provincial or other federal legislation and laws. So that too just brings it back to, it only approves what is being proposed. It doesn't give them any other forms of approval.
Thank you, Ken. Yeah, exactly. Any other questions? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Sorry, did I have a mover and seconder? Yes, I did. All right, I'll ask the question again. All those in favor, please? That is carried. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to the HR department. Proposed new org chart. Someone care to move that, please? Joan and Barb, thank you. Kayla, welcome.
Thank you. This report is as a result of staff assessing our current organizational structure and coming up with a recommendation that postpones the implementation of some of the director positions that were slated for this year. There are various factors that went into this decision and this recommendation, and some of it involves the challenge with recruitment that we've had, and some of it also supports our budget. In addition to that, we also provided some information on our current FTEs and where we stand for those. And I will take questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Kayla. Are there any questions regarding the report? Joan, go ahead, please.
Sorry, I was looking at your the organizational chart, and blue at the bottom is for managers, right?
Yep.
Yes, that's correct.
But when I counted at the top in blue, I have more than 8. I counted 10, but in your report, you said we now have the 1 CAO, 1 director, 8 managers, and 1 librarian CEO, or is the directors in blue too? And I'm counting those.
Yes, sorry for the confusion through the mayor. Yes, so the director and the librarian CEO are also marked in blue.
Okay.
So that.
Okay, thanks. I was just thinking, but this is 10. I counted 10, or can I count, or what? Okay, thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Any other questions? Barb?
More of a comment, I suppose. Within the proposed changes, by eliminating the senior management level, we're going to be focusing the resources at a more mid-management or lower in order to assign the work where it is most needed at this time, is how I see how it unfolding. The asset manager, financial analyst, that role has been mandated and is a requirement, and will be, although we've contracted it for now, it will be a requirement, legislative requirement going forward, because we have to maintain that in order to qualify for it feeds the financial information return, which then feeds funding. Can you just elaborate a little bit on how having that position is going to be important going forward?
Yes, thank you. So for the asset management, there has been legislation on the asset management plan and the updates for that. For sure, funding is it is required that we have an updated asset management plan for funding, as well as the FIR. So it's kind of both. And we do have it contracted out at the moment, but that's just to get us up to the 2025 legislated standard. And then from then on in, we still need to maintain it. And I'm sure there will be more standards to come. Part of maintaining it too is with the growth, we are constantly adding to our assets. So it does become a fairly big job.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Kayla. Moving on to legislative services, we have a report here regarding a council meeting date change. I think it was alluded to at one of our past meetings. So Madam Clerk, I need a mover and seconder, please. Joan and Barb. Lindsay, please.
Thank you, Mayor Milne, through you. So yeah, we have a conflict with the Ontario Good Roads Conference for our next council meeting. We would likely still achieve quorum, but with the budget proposed to being passed on that meeting, we thought it was important that all members of council and our interim CAO and our acting public works manager be present for that meeting. So they will be at the conference as well as a few of our members of council until the Wednesday. So we're proposing to move it to Thursday. We have it in at 9 a.m. as that was just the same time as the Wednesday meeting, but that's up to council at this point.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or discussion? Barb?
Thank you. And thank you, Lindsay. I didn't realize that I have an SVC executive meeting that morning of the 3rd, which I could go back to them and ask them to change the time, but I wondered if council and staff would there be agreement to start the meeting at 1 o'clock instead of 9 a.m.? If not, if that doesn't work for the majority of council, I will go back to the executive and let them know I'm not available at 9 o'clock. But if we could make it at 1 o'clock, it would save a lot of effort.
Does anyone have any restrictions about 1 o'clock? Jim?
Yeah, I'll have been off for 3 days, so I was actually going to ask for an evening, like a 6, 5 or 6, which I know nobody would be thrilled with, but.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
I'm flexible. 1 o'clock's fine.
Okay. Jason?
Yeah, me too, whatever.
Works for me. Someone might want to make an amendment to the, so you wouldn't have been here for 9 either?
No.
Is that what I'm, yeah. Okay. Joan?
Oh, well, if you're not going to be here for 9 or 1, I was just going to say we could do 6 o'clock online, but you wouldn't be here either way. So.
6 at night, no, I can make an evening. I'd have to make, like, I could make it an evening meeting, like even a 5 or something.
Well, I guess it'll depend, like, it's pretty important budget meeting, like. Yeah, I'm flexible either way, but I don't think it should be online.
Martin?
Yep. Well, I echo what Jason just said, that it is the budget, so it should be in council.
Yeah.
And that I do really believe. And, you know, goodness knows how long is the meeting going to take because of the budget. So if it starts at 1, it could be over at 3, or we'd have 2. Do you want 2?
Could be over 2.
Yeah, but but we have time at 1 o'clock if it goes over. So.
Okay, what I'm hearing is that either 9 or 1 works. The proposal has been to change it to 1. I'm not seeing any objections, Madam Clerk, or who was the mover and seconder? I forget now. Joan and, yeah, is the mover and seconder okay, or do we need a formal amendment?
Sorry, to do 1 o'clock?
Yeah.
Yeah, formal amendment, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in the absence of that, I'm,
Sorry.
okay, go ahead.
I feel for you. I would like you to be there. And it's important that it's not just the budget that we're dealing with. And we all know that meetings can go longer in the evening, and we have a 3-hour, well, we'd have a 3-hour plus 1 maximum in an evening. So the 1 o'clock gives us some flexibility, and I would propose that we change the time to 1 p.m. instead of 9 a.m.
Okay, is there a seconder for that? Martin, thank you. Any further discussion on the amendment? All those in favor of the amendment? That is carried. Back to the original motion as amended to hold the meeting on April 2nd, April 3rd, rather. No, not, yes, April 3rd at 1 PM. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Lindsay. You have another report here regarding Eco Park Phase 1 property, future sale. Someone care to move that, please? Jason and Joan, thank you. Lindsay.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Milne. This property was recently reacquired by the township. It's in phase 1 of our eco park. So staff are just looking for direction to post this property for sale. It has been declared surplus to the needs of the township in the past. We would re-advertise and follow our current process for sale of land. The property would be sold in an as-is condition, and that would be made very clear through the process. I don't think I have anything else to add. I'll just take questions.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay. Martin.
Lindsay, with the new sales price, it will be the most current up to date from the last real estate.
That's correct. Yeah.
And with that being said, if there is any signs saying the old price, they should come down.
So those have been covered.
Covered. Okay,
Yes.
that's the only things I did drive by.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
that's great.
Thank you, Martin. Any other questions? Call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Lindsay. Moving on to bylaws and motions. We need a motion here to appoint someone to do civil marriage ceremonies, or some people. Jim will move. Seconder, Martin, thank you. Who's? Lindsay,
Yeah,
are you?
sure, I can speak to it. We are adding 2 members of staff, Sheila and Kayla, that can now perform civil marriage solemnizations. So that would be 5 of us total at the township that would be able to.
Don't let it be said that we do not service the community. All right. Any questions, discussion? Martin?
Lindsay, with all these new people coming doing this, is there a specific training or is it just a mandated script that you can just go through like anything else, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, there is training through AMCTO, our association. I believe a few of us have maybe done it in the past, but we largely just learn from each other, and there is a few important points you have to hit, but otherwise the scripts can be tailored to each couple.
Joan and then Barb.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It doesn't cost the township anything more. We don't have to pay the extra staff that are now appointed. We have to pay them separately to do these.
So
services.
if it's during business hours, if like the couple comes to the office during business hours, then the staff would just be paid their regular wage. If it's outside of business hours, then they would be paid extra, but there's a fee that the couple has to pay. So it's offset.
Thank you.
Barb?
Thank you. And just to follow up on Joan's comment, it's in the fees and charges, and they still have to pay a fee in order to get married during regular business hours at the municipality, but
Yeah.
the fee is significantly more if you're going outside of those hours or to a specific site. You are paid by the township. That fee goes to the township to offset that. It doesn't go directly to you. Do you?
Partial.
Okay.
It's partial.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There's an internal process for it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions. I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Next bylaw for consideration is to appoint a chief administrative officer. Someone care to move that? Jim and Barb, thank you. Kayla, do you want to say a few words? Please.
Sure. Thank you. This is an appointment bylaw to appoint Jim Ellis as the Chief Administrative Officer. Jim's been serving as the interim CAO for about 3 months now. So this is to make it a permanent placement.
Very good. Thank you, Kayla. Any questions or discussion? Not seeing any, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Congratulations, sir. The next is to appoint a deputy treasurer. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Jim and Joan, thank you. Lindsay?
Sorry, thank you. Through you, Mayor Milne, the next two bylaws are just kind of a bit of a cleanup. We were just having some difficulties with both Kayla and I being appointed as deputy treasurers for signing purposes and such. So myself and our current deputy treasurer, Renee Knowles, will be appointed as deputy treasurers. And then the following bylaw is Kayla being appointed as acting treasurer. Just a little bit easier administratively. Renee's been with us for a while now. This is not a new addition. So just cleaning up some of the appointments here.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions regarding the bylaw? I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Congratulations to both of you. The next bylaw is to appoint an acting treasurer. Someone care to move that, please? Martin and Joan, thank you. Any questions? Call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. There we go. We got a full complement of staff again. Are there any notices of motion? Barb?
Yes, through you. And it's a notice of motion with regard to fostering a healthy democracy through local tourism. Whereas a healthy professional news media is essential for the proper functioning of civil society and a healthy democracy at the local, regional, federal, and international level. And whereas, according to a local research project, more than 520 news outlets in nearly 350 communities across Canada have closed or merged from 2008 to October 2024, compared to the launch of 260 that continue to participate. Whereas 29 municipalities, home to nearly 11 million people in 9 provinces across Canada, have passed motions since 2020, voicing support for journalism in aid of democracy. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Township of Southgate recognize that a healthy professional news media is essential to the proper functioning of democracy in the region, and that Council urges nearby municipal councils across Canada to recognize that a robust news media is essential to the proper functioning of democracy in their jurisdictions, and that this resolution be forwarded to all municipalities, local MPs and MPPs, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. I so move.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Joan, thank you. Do you want to speak to your motion?
I do have just one comment about it, and it's that the phrase without independent and healthy journalism, we don't have a healthy democracy, and without a healthy democracy, we don't have independent journalism. But I think it's important in today with the things that are going on and the importance of having an independent news source that presents the information out there to our residents is so important. And we, as a community, we have the benefit of having an actual newspaper in our community and a number of really great online news media. And I think we just need to recognize how important they are. This is, it doesn't really advance the business of the Township of Southgate specifically, but I think it speaks to the importance of engagement and communication with our residents.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question. Oh, Martin, go
No,
ahead.
more of a comment. I do agree with we're blessed to have a newspaper in town. I do believe that. And whether or not it'll be any major impact on democracy, because it seems to be the newspapers are cannibalizing themselves. The big ones are chewing up the smaller papers. And as I said, we're blessed to have the Herald. But Yeah, I think the times are changing. I listen to two digital news people, and that's the only way they seem to get their views across without being stifled by stifled by the major newspapers. So it is important to have that knowledge being put out there, either whether small paper or digital. So I support this. And as Barb said, it might not really affect the township proper, but down the road, and it does in a sense collaterally. So I agree with this.
Thank you, Martin. Joan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do support it because, say, for example, the Herald, I know a lot of people in the township of Southgate depend on that particular newspaper coming to them, even though a lot of things are digitalized. They're the older folks that look out for stuff in the newspaper. And even when we do advertisement for things that are going on, I know most people rely on it. So I do support fostering healthy democracy through local journalism. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Any other discussion or questions? Not seeing any. I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Barb. Consent items. We have three there for regular business. Somebody need any of those removed for further direction? Someone want to move that we received them? Jim and Joan? Barb?
I don't want to pull the report, but I did want to comment on one or two. The 11.1.2, the South Grade Chamber of Commerce MOU report, I just want to make it known that there is a comment or part of the report indicates that I was part of the Kite Festival Committee, of which I was not, but I did happily share information when asked about who to contact. I think in contacting the South Grade Chamber, they just wanted to acknowledge that I was there to provide information. They actually never met. They didn't actually have a full-fledged committee meet, but they all had various tasks, and they could reach out if they had questions about Southgate specifically. So just wanted to clarify that. I don't have a conflict of interest in the report, but always happy to volunteer and help out our community organizations where I can.
Thank you, Barb. Any other questions? Martin?
Well, since Brenna's here, she can answer a couple of questions since it was put on the floor. In the report, sustainable businesses in Southgate, is that including on farm, or is that just brick and mortar like downtown or?
This is sustainable.
Yes.
And that's on, is that a reference to how many?
Yeah, I have it written down here, sustainable businesses in Southgate.
Which report are you referring to, Martin?
South Grade Chamber. Yes. Yep.
So is that?
Sorry. Yeah, it could, yeah, that'll be fine. 15.
Is it on now? It's on. Okay. Sorry about that. Thank you. And through you. Yes, there are 15 members of the Chamber of Commerce. And from my understanding, 2023, there would have been approximately 9 or 10.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Any other? I just want to thank Ken for the BMA report, that the study analysis. There's a tremendous amount of information in there, and it's very interesting, some of it. So thank you for that. Sorry? Was it Jim? Well, whoever did it, they did a tremendous amount of work, and I want to thank them. So, okay, all right, it's fine. Thank you, Jim. Do you want to add something? Go ahead,
It was a
please.
tag team effort.
Well, yeah, I don't. Yeah, okay, good. All those in favor of receiving those three reports, Moving right along. Okay, thank you. The next four reports are correspondence, rather. Anybody want any of those four removed for further direction? Do we have a mover and seconder to receive them? Joan or Barb and Martin, thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? Barb?
I just wanted to have maybe a bit of a discussion about the City of Toronto request for expression of interest. I'm wondering if our CAO, that's got a nice ring to it, Jim Ellis, would like to elaborate. I know that we have been discussing for over the years, or the county every so often starts having the conversation of, maybe we need a regional waste diversion system, or I'm not suggesting that we express interest because we already have a high level of growth, and our good stewardship of our waste diversion system will give us extra years, but the more we grow, the more that will eat up. So I'm not actually suggesting that we start taking waste from Toronto, but I wondered what conversations are being had out there within Grey County with our staff.
Jim?
Yeah, so we put this on the agenda because previous councils had looked into maybe a possibility of looking up the value of that landfill and should we cash it in, and maybe this is an opportunity. It's not what I'm suggesting, but it's on the table. But to the Grey County regional aspect, we've been over a year involved with that, with all the lower tiers, and looking at a regional model for waste and gathering data. The county is to come to local councils and give a presentation on their findings. And we haven't seen that final report yet. So it was supposed to be in the fall, but it's still on the back burner. I'm not 100% where it is with the county, but anyhow, we are in a good position, as everyone knows. So I guess we'll wait and see what they bring forward, and the councils can deliberate where they want to head or if they're interested. So,
okay, Mark.
Jim, there was one page in the report. It said they want to maybe do this. They gave different options to Southgate and probably a lot of other townships. But there was one line, and they didn't mention it in those items, but there was one line saying that they, from their green programs, they had 110,000 tons of organic. Would that be an option that we would just want to look into by itself because of Listec and because of the new biodigester coming in? Like if they want to get rid of it, we have the holding card. We could say, well, we don't want your stuff, but we'll take the organic if those companies wanted it. Would that be an option we could go back to them about?
Jim?
Yeah, I guess that is an opportunity that we could consider to offer the compost program. We are allowed in our ECA currently to accept other neighboring municipalities, but not per se the City of Toronto. So it'd be an amendment required, but we do have Southgate Renewables coming online, so they're looking for feedstock like this. So I think there's other opportunities, and bringing other organics into our site means increasing our staffing and our operations. And what are we going to do with all this compost? We have an abundance of our own a little bit at this point in time. So, it's something that could be looked into, but is it really for us? I'm not sure, because the volume that would be receiving would be overwhelming to what our current capacities are. So,
Thank you, Jim. Okay. All those in favor of receiving the correspondence? That is carried. Resolutions from other municipalities, there's two there. Anyone wish any of those to be removed for further direction? Mover and seconder to receive. Jason and Martin, thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. County report. Snow sliding off the roof. Barb, do you have anything for the county report?
Thank you. And through you, we met on March 13th. The county meeting is recorded, so you can check it out on the Grey County YouTube station. There were 6 recipients of the county's paramedic services that received exemplary service medals. These awards come from the Governor General and recognize experienced paramedics who consistently perform at an exceptional level. Just congratulations to Sherry Foster, Melissa Kaufman, Paul Salyers, Stephanie Wilson, Shauna Schaefer, and Brandy Watson. We also got a presentation from our Economic Development and Tourism and Culture Department about being named to the top 21 intelligent communities again this year. So we're looking forward to more news on that. And we'll be, and County Council supported the exploration of a notice of motion to explore opportunities for additional joint municipal services, whatever that means.
Okay. Any questions regarding county stuff? Not seeing any. I'll ask if anyone is in favor, if everyone is in favor of receiving those. Yeah, that was the county report. We didn't have a motion on that one. Just testing them. Almost time for another break. Members' privilege, good news and celebrations. Anybody have any? Barb?
Just to let everyone know that there will be a birthday celebration to recognize Agnes McPhail at the Annesley Church in Markdale on Sunday, March 23rd from 2 to 4 p.m.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right. We do have a closed meeting. So perhaps we'll vote on going into closed meeting and then we'll recess for a few minutes. Okay. Someone move Jim and Jason. We're going to closed session. Be it resolved, the council will proceed into closed session at 3:02 in order to address matters relating to personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, specifically tax arrears, and that all those required remain in attendance. All those in favor? Did I get a mover and seconder? Yes, I did. Oh, aha. All those in favor? That is carried. All right. We'll recess for 5 minutes before we actually start in. Okay, we're back in open session. I can report that council only discussed that item that was on the closed meeting agenda. Reports of municipal officers. We continue on. We now have two reports, or one report and a bylaw from the finance department. Someone care to move on the tax collection policy update? Barb and Jason. Who is doing that? Kayla, please.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm just getting sorted here. So for this report, we wanted to review our tax collection policy and update it with just current legislation and procedures. I did have a couple friendly amendments for some spelling and grammar and those kinds of things. And also in the definition of property taxes, we removed the reference to the specific bylaw number for the property standards bylaw because it could be updated in the future. We didn't want to have to come back and update the policy. And we also referenced section 446 of the Municipal Act, where remedial action is also included as property taxes. It could get added to the taxes if not paid by the owner. So we've added those two friendly amendments to the policy.
Very good. Thank you, Kayla. Questions? Not seeing any. I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Moving on to the bylaw to adopt policy number 4, the tax collection policy. Someone want to move that, please? Jim and Joan. Thank you. Anything further to add, Kayla? Nope. Okay. Any questions? I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Confirming bylaw. Someone want to move that? Jason, Jim? All those in favor? That is carried. One remaining motion to adjourn. Jim and Barb. All those in favor? That's carried. We're adjourned. Thank you, folks. We'll see you back here at 6 o'clock for the special council meeting regarding budget.